Hello, welcome back to my channel. My name is Bree and I'm so happy that you're here so that I can show you my flip through of my 2025 manga journal. So for those of you that don't know, I have a separate journal for the mangas that I read because I read a lot of them and I feel like keeping track of them in the same journal as with the books that I read would just mess up with my stats. So I just took that as a very good excuse to have a separate journal for my mangas. So this was the very first time that I tried to set up a manga journal, and it is somewhat similar to a reading journal, but of course changed so it would fit better what I am reading. But the beginning spreads are, like I said, somewhat similar. I have the index spreads. I set up two because I thought one would not be enough, and I believe I could have used the second one if I actually continued in this journal for the next year as well. I won't, but well, that's just because I came up with a different idea that I want to do for 2026. Then, like I also have in my reading journal, I have a goal spread. My goal was originally to read 100 volumes, and I read 108 in total, which is surprisingly a lot, I know. The way I can read so many volumes is by borrowing them from the library because, well, you probably know that mangas are expensive and I would not have place in my home for over 100 volumes. So by borrowing them from the library, I was able to read quite a lot, and I'm very happy to say that I crushed my goal for last year. And for this year, my goal is also 100 volumes, I think. I haven't officially decided yet, but I think that's a nice number, and if I read more, then it's just an extra bonus. And then we have my reading tracker. So the idea was that on the left-hand side, I could mark the days where I read. Where it's marked with gray, it means I read less than a volume a day. This light blue means that I finished a whole volume that day, and this dark blue, which only happened once the whole year, means that I read more than one volume a day. And then on the right side, I wanted to mark down which volumes or like which series I read each day. That's why there are so many colors here, like each color represents a different series. Next, we have a spread for the series that I loaned. Like I said, I loaned all of these volumes from the library, but I quickly gave up with keeping up with this spread. It just took way too much effort, and I kept forgetting to write down the volumes that I placed on hold and the ones that I borrowed, so I just gave up on this spread. I had 2 pages set up, but as you can see, I didn't use them. I realized that it's not very productive for me to use. So then we have my series. Each box is color coded based on the month, and a second part for the series spread. Even though I read 118 volumes, I didn't really finish many series. Like Tokyo Ghoul was the only one that I finished, and I also caught up with the Apothecary Diaries. But because I borrowed these from the library, what usually happens is that I finish the volume and only then I go to place the next one on hold. So it takes quite a while before I can read the next one. So for many of these series, I only read like 1 volume a month. So that's why I made a progress with most of them, but I didn't really get to finish them. And then next we have my statistics, just a very simple stats page to see how many volumes I read in a month, the number of pages and the number of series that I read. And then we can move on to my monthly statistics page. So if you've seen my reading journal flip through, you probably know that in my reading journal I set up spreads for each book that I read. Obviously, I don't do that in my manga journal, like it would be way too much work. So for this journal, I only have this kind of monthly statistics page. I was very proud of this idea that I had to put the cover in the calendar so I could very easily tell which volumes I read which days. And on the right hand side, I just have some statistics like the genre, the author gender, the star rating, and the series that I read from. And then of course the number of volumes and the number of pages. All of these monthly statistics spreads are very similar looking, as you can see, but that was very much on purpose. I wanted them to look the same. And just like I did in my reading journal, I also set up quarterly statistics pages in this journal, but for the manga I also choose my favorite volumes of the months and also my favorite characters. And then here you can see how many volumes I read each month and how many pages. You can probably tell that I was very motivated in January. I read a lot. And if you have seen my flip through of my reading journal, I mentioned in that one that I was surprised to see that I mostly read books from female authors, and funnily enough, it's exactly the opposite when it comes to mangas. Most of them are written by men. There are a few authors that don't share their gender, or like we don't know what their genders are, so that's why some are with the question mark. Then we can move on to April. I finally read the Tomie series this month, and it was very interesting. I wasn't sure what I expected, but it was quite good. Then we have May. And June. Then we have my second quarter stats. I don't really like the spread how it looks, but well. Okay, then moving on to July. In the summer months I usually don't read that much, so you can probably tell that as well. We have August. And then September. I was quite busy in the first 3 weeks of the month, so I didn't really read any manga then. Then we have my statistics for the last 3 months. And then we can move on to the final few months of the year. We have October. This is when I actually finished Tokyo Ghoul. And then November. I started Windbreaker this month. It was quite good. And lastly, we have December. I read surprisingly a lot. Like, it's quite funny that I read the most in January and in December. But yeah, this month I also caught up with the Apothecary Diaries, so it was quite nice. And we have finally my quarter 4 statistics. I find it a bit funny that Mika made it as my favorite character in quarter 1, 2, and also 4. And Frieren was also one of my favorites in January. So yeah, here you can see how much I read in the last 3 months of the year. And we also have my manga read. I do this in my reading journal as well, and I had to do it in my manga journal as well, just because I find this so satisfying to look at. So these are all the covers that I read this year. So there's a lot of them, and I'm very happy with how productive I was this last year. And the last spread I set up in this journal was my statistics for the entire year. Like I said, I read the most in January and then in December. You can see that from the number of pages as well. I read a total of 118 volumes and 23,803 pages, so quite a lot. Most of my volumes were rated 5 stars. I didn't really have 1 or 2 stars, but I am also more lenient, I guess, or like less strict when it comes to rating manga. Then the most read genre was horror, probably not surprising, and the most read series I had were the Apothecary Diaries with 14 volumes and Tokyo Ghoul with 14 volumes. On second place we have Spy X Family with 13, and on the third place we have Seraph of the End with 12. So that was it for my manga journal. I was very pleased with how this journal turned out overall. Like I said in the beginning, it was my very first time setting up a manga journal. I have never done it before, and I haven't really seen anyone else do something like this before, so I didn't really have an inspiration for this journal. So it did teach me a lot, and I do plan to have a journal for 2025 as well, like I said. I will be using a square journal for the first time, so I'm very excited for that. And if all goes according to plan, I will be using the journal for 2 years, and I'm very excited to share it with you. I am thinking of doing a short setup video for it as well, so do stay tuned for that. But yeah, this was it for today. Thank you so much for watching. If you like my journaling style and if you think that what I have planned for the future is something that might interest you, please consider subscribing. If you like the video, please give it a thumbs up. I would very much appreciate that. Tell me your favorite spreads in the comments. Tell me what you think of the idea of having a separate journal for manga. If you read manga and comics and have a reading journal, do you keep track of everything in the same journal, or would you consider having a separate one for mangas? Let me know what you think. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you in the next one. Bye bye!